Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and it is a pleasant good morning for a change after the Mets finally had a game that they controlled from the beginning to the end and didn't hand it away at the end of the game. Last night, the Mets destroyed the Braves, put a hurting on the baseball, had a great performance from Jacob deGrom to boot, and best of all, avoided having to go to the bullpen until the ninth inning of the game, which is always a recipe for success with the New York Mets. On SNY yesterday, SNY.TV, Mets blog, John Harper wrote an article sort of calling out Jacob deGrom. Not directly calling him out, but almost challenging deGrom and sort of saying, the Mets signed you to this lucrative contract extension for days like this. You have to be the one to step up. And it basically said, throw a complete game. Do not give the Braves a chance to compete in this game. And as though Jacob deGrom were up to the task, what I meant to say is, as though we would think that Jacob deGrom wouldn't be up to the task. Of course he was. deGrom was brilliant last night. He threw nearly a complete game. Ron Darling actually pulled a Gary Cohen and jinxed this in the ninth inning. When Freddie Freeman stepped to the plate and Ronnie said, it's a tall task to hang a collar on Freddie, something like that. Basically an offer. And the very next pitch, home run. But the two home runs that deGrom allowed in the ninth inning to Freeman and Josh Donaldson, who finally is healthy and is having himself a decent season again with the Braves. Those two home runs aside, those are the only blips on an otherwise sparkling performance for deGrom. Just missed a complete game. It's funny, he only has one shutout to his record. That was amazing to find out. I would have expected him to have more, but regardless, he did exactly what John Harper challenged him to do last night in Jacob deGrom, that is. He put the Mets on his back and he said, we're taking this game, hop on board and come with me. And then Pete Alonso was on Jake's back and he said, wait a minute, I got something to say about this too. He hopped off Jake's back and said, the rest of you guys jump on me, I got this. And he proceeded to go 4 for 4 with another massive home run. He reached base all 6 of his plate appearances. So Alonso continues to be an absolute force in this Mets clubhouse, despite him being a rookie. He has so much poise about him, and he's become a team leader in just 3 short months. It's unbelievable. But he's had a great season. You can't look anywhere else on this team right now to find an MVP. It is Pete Alonso. I've been giving out goats and game balls every day for the season, and Alonso leads the team by a ridiculously wide margin, and he's going to get another one for last night. This is I think it's his 22nd game ball of the season. So, I mean, do the math. He's had a game ball in like a third of the games the Mets have played. And I'm not just giving him game balls for home runs. I mean, he has not just hit home runs. He's hit clutch home runs. He's hit late innings home runs. He's hit game-winning home runs. He has done everything the Mets could possibly have asked of him. And last night, deGrom did too. So I tip my cap to both of those gentlemen. Also should mention Jeff McNeil had a real nice night at the plate as well. The McNeil-Alonso tandem, where one guy gets on base, that's McNeil, and the other one drives him in, that's of course Alonso, is a really dangerous combination for other teams to be concerned about, because McNeil gets on base at a high clip, whether it's, he doesn't really walk a lot, but he puts the ball in play more often than not. He very rarely strikes out. He makes things happen. And that's what you need from a table setter like that. And if he can keep batting in front of Alonso for the next few years, that's going to be a great combination for the Mets to lean on. A couple of injury-related items. I mentioned that the bullpen was avoided last night almost completely. Thanks, Ronnie. But the Mets ended up having to turn to Robert Gazelman to close out the game. I was hoping that they would have gone to Steven Nagasek, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the rookie who they called up from AAA. As well as Daniel Zamora also got called up, because before the game, the Mets made a couple of roster moves. Jerry's Familia went on the injured list for being a head case. No, I don't. I don't actually know what injury they claimed he has, but DeComo posted something on Twitter yesterday afternoon that was something like a conversation with Mickey, and DeComo asked him, like, is Familia hurt? And Mickey's like, no, he seems okay. We monitor him every day, we talk every day, and he seems healthy. And then, like, 12 minutes later, the announcement comes out that he's going on the injured list. So, I mean, clearly something is going on there. But look, I mean, I think all parties involved, including Familia, have to realize that this is the best thing to do for the team, to just get him away from the bullpen for 10 days or more, and let him get his head together, because that's his injury right now. It's in between the eyeballs, in between the ears rather, behind the eyeballs. It's a brain thing. It's a mental thing with Familia. I don't think physically there's anything wrong with him. But one of the nice things I had on Twitter was not yesterday, but Monday night. I think it was Monday night or yesterday morning, maybe. I had some real good conversations about these things, and the bottom line was, look, there are no reinforcements coming, and I think I talked about this yesterday. These guys have to figure it out, and the only way they're going to figure it out is if they get in the games and figure it the hell out, and that's what needs to happen. So Familia's hurt. He's going to be away for 10 days. The other move they made was Drew Gagno was optioned back to AAA, and as I said, Daniel, don't call me Pedro Zamora, was called up. Anyone who watched The Real World way back in the day would get the Pedro Zamora reference. Anyone who didn't, I don't know, Google it. So, so the Mets have some new blood in their bullpen, which I'm sure Mickey will be quick to use. I really was surprised that Nogosek didn't get into the game last night. It was a perfect spot for him to make his debut, to get to dip his toes in the water, and have a nice, comfortable 8-run cushion to deal with, and not have to be too nervous about any more nervous than necessary making your MLB debut. But hopefully we'll see him one night this week, and hopefully the Mets can use last night's win and dominant win as a propeller of some sorts and push them forward to a series victory this evening with Steven Matz on the mound. One other bullpen note I should mention is that Justin Wilson was scratched from a rehab start last night, and that means that we won't be seeing Justin Wilson for some time. Wonderful. Wilson was one of the guys that Van Wagenen brought in this offseason to bolster the bullpen. He's been missing for more than half the season. Raise your hand if that sounds familiar. It was like the Anthony Swarzak thing from a couple years ago. He showed up and he was terrible, and that was it. And then he was hurt. So it's like every guy it seems like the Mets bring in ends up in the same trajectory of injured, not injured, back from injury, terrible, injured again. That's sort of where Justin Wilson is right now. So it isn't also it's also worth mentioning rather that Brandon Nimmo suffered a setback as well. He has been shut down completely from baseball activities, as I'm sure everyone knows. That sucks. I was really hoping that Nimmo could be back, but the silver lining to that is, and this was my thought when I read the news yesterday, is that Dom Smith is secure on the team now. I don't think you can use Dom Smith as a trade chip without Brandon Nimmo in the outfield. And I don't mean Brandon Nimmo from earlier this year either. I mean the Brandon Nimmo that played last season so well. That's the guy the Mets need to get back if you want to talk about potentially using Dom Smith as a trade chip to bolster the bullpen or do something. Without a healthy Nimmo, I don't think you can do that. I do not think you can move Dom Smith without a healthy Nimmo back. Now you can of course talk about putting McNeil back in left field, having J.D. Davis play left field, but so long as Cano is back and playing regularly, McNeil's going to be in left field. Davis is going to be spotting. Frazier at third. I don't think Davis is going to get much time in the outfield. So, the question for Dom then becomes, is he the fourth outfielder, or is he the pinch hitter? And I think right now he's the pinch hitter. The real bummer is that the Mets don't have a legit center fielder who can play both sides of the ball. You know, you've got Carlos Gomez and Juan Lagares pretending out there. Both of them are adequate defenders, but neither of them can hit, and that really sucks. And then if you say, you know, well, let's shift McNeil or shift Conforto to center field, neither of them are center fielders, so, or, you know, the defense will suffer there. So it's a challenge. Again, I think if Nimmo is back, it makes things a little bit easier because Nimmo is a more natural center fielder, but, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm just glad to see that Dom Smith is going to continue to have an opportunity to play with the Mets, and I hope he continues to make the best of it. So, anyhow, the Mets wrap up their 3-game set tonight with the Bravos in Atlanta, where I'm sure it will rain because it always rains when the Mets are in Atlanta. Steven Matz on the hill for the Mets, 7:20 start. Mets looking to take the series from the red-hot Atlanta Braves. That would be a great sign if they were able to take this series, but it's going to be on Matt to do something like Jake did last night and shut the powerhouse Braves offense down. We'll see what happens, and I'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. Until then, I thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met, and as always, let's go Mets.